but it kept messing up on me. So I'm having to go live spontaneously. Hopefully somebody will come on here. But if not, I figured I would get on here and talk about baby chicks, how you get started on them, what I've learned in my past year, and things I've just learned, things that I would find helpful if somebody is new to it. So I'm going to get my computer warmed up because I have some notes on it, but I'm going to give it again a chance to go live good. And y'all are welcome to ask questions. In fact, I encourage it. So let me get this all warmed up and going. See if anybody comes on. Okay. I wanted to make sure I write down as much as I could. But hi, if you're new here, my name's Cloudy, and I do content about chickens, crafting, mainly crochet, and I also do craft fairs on certain times of the year, mainly spring and fall. Summer and winter are very slow unless it's Christmas time. Every now and then I will catch a fair in the summer, but it's not often because it just gets scorching hot where I live. So it's really not that worth it. And so probably during the spring and fall, I will do more content on that type of stuff. But we are deep into starting chick season, so I figured that would be appropriate right now. And so probably the first thing I would talk about, I'll get into my experience. I got chicks this past spring around March, and I kind of got a mix of a breed, the mixed breeds, and I really have been wanting them for a long time. I've pretty much been begging my husband, even though he's a big chicken person too. He grew up with them. I didn't. I had a mother who was terrified of any kind of bird. So for years growing up, I wanted some, but you can't have them. So I did the typical thing when you grow up and you have adult money. That's what I got. And my husband built me a coop for kind of a Christmas/birthday present. That's what I said I wanted. And then as family members, for my birthday, which is in March, I want chicks or anything to do with that. Nothing else. If you do want to get me something, do that. If not, that's fine. But that's what they did. And I have been loving it ever since this past year with raising them. It's so much fun. You have learned some interesting things. I did not know that chicks could be pretty messy. As small as they are, they can get pretty messy. So, to get into it, that's why I got into it. I love them. So, the number one thing I recommend talking about is shelter, heat, and food/water. How to care for them, especially the first few days when you get them, because most of them have arrived through mail. So they can be a little dehydrated, a little sickly sometimes. Pray that's not the case for you, but it's likely. So, shelter wise, it can be any box that is, a storage container. You can get them at Walmart. You can use those. Some people worry about them being too slick, but I lay down a good layer of paper towels. And I have also used a wooden box, a crate that my in-laws had, and I borrowed it. It's, I would say, about 3 feet by 3 feet and about 2 feet deep. So you start out with that. Heat, that can be a controversial topic because some people are very against heat lamps. I understand why, because they can be prone to fires if you are not careful. and it can be very easy to start a fire with chicks. So we did use heat lamps. What we did was hang it up, make sure it was very secure. Don't let anything touch it. And when you can, I recommend turning it off, let it cool off, and dust it. Don't leave it off for too long because chicks need a lot of heat. And make sure that when they start developing feathers, keep an eye on that, because if they shed feathers and it touches the heat lamp, it could start something. And also, you need to be careful about burning yourself or anything like that. Do not, if you use a heat lamp, do not touch it while it is on, and wait a good few minutes before you touch it after you turn it off. I have bumped it one time, and those things get extremely hot. Please, 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 if you get that, be careful. I have heard about people getting the heat plates that you can change the level on them, how high up or how low they go. Those, I've heard that people love those. We just didn't personally get them because they're not available right now in our area. But with the heat lamps, also, one more tip with the heat lamps, if you go that route, move the heat lamp to one side of the little brooder box. Because if you put it in the middle, the chicks do not have a way to get away from the heat if they get too hot. And one of the signs you'll notice when they get too hot is they'll start to make this very loud, frantic peeping. Like it's very, you can tell that there's something wrong. It's like beep, 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 constant. So whenever you hear that noise, go check on your chicks. Make sure they have a way to get away from the heat lamp if they get too hot. And one little tip that I learned this past year that has helped, I think, helped my chicks a lot when they first came in, is you get a little packet of electrolytes. They usually come in a pack of 3, depending on your farm supply store. And I will answer your questions in just a minute. They come in a pack of 3 usually, and you add them to water, and it's kind of like Gatorade for chicks. And I very much think that that helped them a lot. All right. How strong is, I don't know what that is. Hang on, I'm managing the chat real quick. I will get right back into it in just a minute. All right, I think that message was a mistake. Anyway, what was I about to say? Oh, Jamie, hi. And like I said, make a way for them to get away from the heat lamp. So put it to one side so they can have an option of how close and how far away they can get from it. Let's see. Keep the hustle up. Keep making videos. Much love. God bless. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm still learning and I'm trying to do it. And I finally came up with a subject that I think might be helpful this time of year. And okay, we got into heat. We did a little bit of the water, definitely for the first, I did about 2 weeks of the electrolytes thing to make sure they're good and going. And thank goodness my survival rate was a lot higher than is typical, because I will let you know, if you do get chicks, there's likely to be at least 1 or 2, depending on how many you get, who sadly don't make it. That's a reality. It's sad, but that's something that needs to be known if you go into that. So if you're real sensitive to that kind of thing, I would just be careful, do your research, because it is likely to happen. Okay, so food, you just can get a bag of chick starter. I think they recommend that up until they start getting close to laying egg age, which is usually around 8 to 9 months. I think some can do 6 months old, start making eggs, but at least not with my breeds. I have medium to large breeds. So I don't know the case of your small breeds like Polish or Cochins or anything like that. I do want to research that probably next year though, because those look really cool. And let's see, let me look over my notes real quick. Bedding, I think I mentioned bedding, But some people do love shavings. I personally didn't do it because I've heard of people using paper towels. Now, I know paper towels aren't exactly cheap right now, so that is an option to think about. But I really liked how you can just lay them out. They're very easy to clean. It doesn't get in the water. Shavings can get in the water and in the food and then mess with your chicks, especially when they're really young. Usually when they're older, it's not a problem though. They can distinguish the difference. So I personally use paper towels, and that's what I recommend because it was very easy to upkeep, and it was able to add a little bit of sturdiness for their feet, because if the box is too slick, they will slip around. Their legs will get hurt. So paper towels or shavings to give them some traction is the word I'm looking for. And let's see. We got bedding. We got space. Obviously, make sure they're not too crowded, but whenever they're young, space, you can use less space, but obviously as they're getting bigger, you want to consider another place to keep them, probably between the brooder and the coop whenever they start getting to what they call the teenage years, whenever they're starting to grow their feathers and they kind of look awkward, you know, probably for about a month. They look very like they're growing through some things. They go from the fuzziness to the full feathers. It's in between. So you want to consider some way to keep them safe during that stage because they're still small and they're still not able to defend themselves very much, even with a rooster. You know, as they get older, a rooster can defend your flock. So consider that. Make sure they're not overcrowded. Usually you can tell if they start they're pecking at each other and they're getting ill with each other. That's usually a case of there's too many and too small of a space. So watch them, see how they behave, and make sure that it's all good. Let's see. Jim King gave a thumbs up. Again, y'all are welcome to put any questions in the chat. I will gladly answer them. I'm just going over what I have notes on. So if you can think of anything you have a question on, please ask. Alicia, hey, are you going to crochet today? I don't know if I'll be able to today. I try to alternate what I do. Maybe later. I might could do it tonight, but right now this is what I'm able to go on. So keep an eye out. I will try to give a heads up notification. I tried to today. It didn't work out, unfortunately, because I don't know, there was some kind of glitch with YouTube going on today. I was trying to go live immediately and I wasn't ready yet. So let me get back on. All right. Share one mistake was one thing I want to talk about. Alicia, I really want to make a plant pot, but I don't know how to increase or decrease. That is a good video idea. I'm glad you said that. I will try to at least make a short. So keep an eye on that. If not this weekend, I will make sure to write a note for next week. So please keep an eye on that. I will be glad to do that. Okay, back to the chicks. One mistake I made was that chicks can sometimes get a thing that they call pasty butt, which is when I'm trying to think of a way to put this eloquently, their number 2 gets stuck to their tail feathers. It happens a lot. It's very common. And I made the mistake of doing it too much to one chick. It didn't hurt it, but it got cold. So fortunately, the next morning, it was gone. So that was one mistake I learned because I knew you were supposed to wipe it off, but unfortunately, I did not think about the fact that they can get cold. That is one thing about young chicks is if they get too wet and it's too drafty, that's one thing that can make them very weak and sick. So another tip that I would say is have an old sheet or blanket to where if you are predicting that there's going to be heavy wind or rain, you can cover up whatever part is has the chicken wire where it's open, cover that up, Make sure it's not touching the heat lamp if you have one, and that'll keep the wind off of them because it's not always the cold outside that'll get them. It's usually draft and dampness. So make sure you're watching their environment with that because they do not like dampness. It'll make a chick or chicken sick pretty quickly. So you have to make sure they have a nice, clean, and dry environment. So let's see, what's the other note I made? All right, things no one told me. The whole cleaning up the pasty butt thing, that was the biggest one I remember. And chicks are messy. And my notes put on here is smelly, but it didn't so much bother me. I grew up around cows and things like that. So if you're not used to that, consider that. If you're sensitive to that kind of thing, I do not recommend keeping them in your house. Some people have in a spare room or something like that. I kept mine on my porch. I have a pretty big front porch that I was able to keep them on. So something like that, you want them to be kept out of the rain a little bit because that, like I said earlier, it's a big chick killer. And so let's see, how many chicks should I start with? Let's see, I ordered about 22 because you do want to give some leeway, get some extras because, like I said earlier, unfortunately, chicks can pass away very easily. And if that ever happens, know that, especially in the first week, it's probably nothing you did. It's just how it fortunately is. We don't know why sometimes, and so don't let that deter you because there is a lot of benefits to it. You get eggs, depending on the breed, you can get meat for a rainy, an emergency. And that's why we got them. I wanted the fresh eggs. I wanted to know where my eggs were coming from because we do go through them a lot. And I just they taste better to me. I don't know what it is about them, but I liked them a lot more than the grocery store. So that was my benefit. I wanted to be able to have that available in my own backyard. So don't let that deter you. If you really want to raise chickens, don't blame yourself if something happens. If them did happen, learn from it and moving on to the next time you need that. Okay. I just want to let that be said. All right. How fast they grow. They do grow pretty fast, especially in that first 6 months. They go from these little guys that can be about this big to this big before, right before they start laying eggs. So yes, they do grow pretty fast, especially if you get one that is bred for being a meat chicken. If you do want egg-laying chickens that you can keep for several years, be careful not to order a chicken like a not leg bar. I can't think of the name right now. The big white chickens that are bred for meat. If you get a meat chicken, they are not meant to last a long time or live a long time. If you do try to make it to where they live, are living a long time, it can cause them pain. They get a lot of problems. They grow too fast. And so please do research on your breeds. All my chickens are egg layers, and a couple of them are what they call combinations where they're handy for both. But most of mine I'm keeping for egg laying. So please do your research on the breeds, see if they're right for you, if they're right for your environment where you live, and their temperament. That's a big one because I do have children, so I had to look into what's their temperament like usually. And let me catch up on the chat. Miss Flores said, hi hi, if you're still on here. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot and trying to take a moment to look at the chats every now and then. So please, if there's anything to do with chicks that you have questions about, put it down below and I'll get to it. Okay. How attached I got. Now, this is another thing. Depending on your lifestyle, you have to be careful getting attached to chickens. I do have one or two, I will fully admit, that are my little buddies. So just be careful doing that because, like I said, when they're young, they're very prone to getting sick and diseases and stuff. So protect your feelings. All right. And chickens, usually the oldest they will get is about 7. So they're not meant to live long lives. You can, obviously treat them with as much respect as long as you have them. But no, they are not meant to live, as long as a dog or a cat, They're not meant usually to be full-on pets, all of them. So, and if you do treat them all like pets, you can get overwhelmed and it'll get crowded. And just please be careful with that. Know if it's a fit for you. Research the breeds that you want again and make sure that this is right for you, because I cannot tell you whether it's right for you because obviously right now I'm talking to a screen, but also I'm talking to a live chat. So please, please, please research what you're looking for. And let's see. Pecking order surprises. Yeah, that was another one. I knew that they had pecking orders, but I did not know to the extent that they could get. Sometimes they can get very, very mean. Chickens can be bullies. They look cute and fluffy, but they can be bullies. Okay, so that's another warning I will give somebody. How many chicks do I start with? Like I said, that depends. I started with 22 and a few passed on, and I gave away and sold a few to some friends and family because we do have a lot of farmers markets too. So I did take a few and sell them. Can I mix breeds? You can with some. Obviously, research the breeds you have and see, because I think sometimes it can depend. But most breeds, yes, I do believe you can mix them, because that is currently mostly what I'm probably going to end up having, is because I have an array of different breeds. They're all about the same size. Like I said, medium to maybe large breeds. They're not super there's not a variety of sizes out there. When can they go outside? Make sure they are fully feathered. If you see any fuzz on a chicken or a chick, they are not ready to go outside, especially if it's still a little cooler, which can be in spring, because where I live, especially springtime, it can be warm one minute and you need a hoodie on the next. It changes very, very quickly. So with chickens and how they can survive the weather outside, it is a good idea to make sure they have their feathers, their adult feathers, and you will be able to see that. You'll see all the fuzz be shedding off and they'll have their feathers coming in. Like I said earlier, they call it the teenage stage. Do they need treats? No, they do not need them. Now, there is some things out there that they say is beneficial for when they start laying eggs. Obviously, they need anything with calcium. I personally have a lime rock out in my chicken run. So that's one thing that they can use to get a lot of calcium for their eggshells. As chicks, no, they don't really need treats. If you want to get chicks to like you or come to you when you're holding your hand out or anything like that, just take a little bit of the chick starter, sprinkle it in your hand, and hold it down to where they can reach it. But otherwise, No, chickens really don't need treats unless it's calcium or another. I've given my chickens black soldier fly larvae, and that is beneficial for their health a little bit, but most of the time they don't need it. So, unless there's something, some kind of imbalance with them that they need a boost of something, kind of like we do with vitamin supplements. So, I got that down. What if one seems weak? That can depend. You can look at, like I said earlier, pasty butt's a big one to watch out for. I don't know another name for that sickness. So, and if they seem, dehydration is a big one for the first, I would say 3 days to a week. Keep an eye on them. Like I said, the electrolytes can help a lot. So I would recommend getting some of that to use again for the first 2 weeks. Sorry, I still have a little bit of a cold. And let's see. Just honest ones. Okay. And also, there are a lot of chicken groups that are willing to answer questions. Be careful, do your research on some of these answers because some of them can be very contradictory. So, usually, if you can find a friend who has raised them for a few years, that can help. If I know the answer to any questions, I will be glad to try to answer them. And that seems to be all the questions right now. Okay, let's see. If y'all would like for me to do another video on as they get older, how to introduce them to coop life and when is the right time, all that, I would love to do that. And yes, when it comes to the crochet section, I will definitely have to do that. And I'll try to explain as best I can. And anyway, if y'all have, I'm going to give you another minute. If y'all have any questions about baby chicks, how to raise them, what I learned in my first year, because again, this is not coming from someone who is an expert, but this is the things that I have learned this past year that I think are helpful. So if anybody has any questions, I'm going to give a minute to answer. And let's see. And I will go ahead to see if I can give somebody some time. The breeds I currently have are Easter eggers, which are basically chickens that are kind of a mix, usually between Americana and another breed of chicken. Basically, they're mixed breed chickens that lay colored eggs. I love them. The roosters I had with them are a little temperamental, so I would be wary of that. I have Rhode Island Reds. I have Australorps, which are the black ones. They are very sweet, very calm. They say on the websites and stuff that they're a very quiet bird, but in my experience, they are not. Mine aren't anyway. Maybe they're odd. And let's see. I have Buff Orpingtons and I have Dominickers, or Dominiques, I think they're called by hatcheries. And that's what I have. If anybody has any questions about those, I would be glad to answer. But it seems like this live is ending, so I'm going to let it go. Thank y'all for joining me. I will see you in the next video. And yes, I will do that crochet video at least by next week. Thank y'all so much. And if y'all have any questions, let me know when I upload this video. Thank you.